Hello and welcome everybody to Club Freedom Live. My name is Clinton Young, international keynote speaker and coach for aspiring world-class speakers, and my new self-proclaimed title of Freedom Lifestyle Entrepreneur. As many of you know who know me personally, my wife and Mayumi and I love to travel, and we are embarking on our full-time RV lifestyle journey, Club Freedom Style, starting in July. And I am so excited to have an interview today with a total expert in the space of not only just traveling in an RV or travel in general, but full-time RV living. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today. This young lady is literally an expert in this space. She's a Michigan native, and she's been traveling with her, I believe her husband, her corgi, and two little cats, her three fur babies, since 2018 full-time. So if you think you can't travel full-time, bullcrap, you can. You can totally do it. She is the founder of Cinders Travels. She has at Cinders Travels on Instagram and cinderstravels.com. She's also the host of Locals Know Best Podcast.com and at Locals Know Best Podcast, I believe, also on Instagram. And that's an awesome podcast. So definitely check those out. We'll talk more about those as we go. And again, I already said she's a mom of two RV cats and a corgi pup and a full-time RVer since 2018. I actually want to read one more thing about her. She has literally lived, at last check on her website, this may need to get updated, I'm not sure, because she goes to a lot of places with her husband, but RV living, literally lived out of an RV in 31 US states. Holy cow. And their RV has traveled over 20,000 miles, and she's personally been to every US state except Hawaii. Now, I want to hold that title right there. I don't know about y'all. So let's not waste any more time. Let's welcome to the show today, Miss Cindy Scott. She's in Asheville, North Carolina, I believe right now. Let's welcome her to the show. All right, hey. Cindy, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. I did say that right. It's Asheville, North Carolina, right? Where you're at right now?
Yeah, that's
Tell
right.
us a little bit about your spot.
Yeah, that was all amazing. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And I'm really excited for you guys to get started.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm sure you're gonna ask me a bunch of questions.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we're just in Asheville, North Carolina right now. We've been on the road pretty go for about 2.5 years. And we finally have started to slow down a little bit. And we've been here since March, and we're gonna stay till September. So it's a big stretch for us in one place that we haven't done in years.
That's awesome. Yeah. In reading your website, cinderstravels.com, and I think it was on your blog, it was one of your posts. You were talking about how you've been traveling a lot, like fast and furious. That's a lot of states I just mentioned. You've lived in 31 of them. That's bananas. That's so cool. Can't wait to hear about some of your favorites and some of your least favorites possibly as well. And it seems like maybe you're looking for your forever home, and you may be looking to settle down perhaps, which is cool. So Asheville, you're exploring that. So that's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I think forever home is such a tricky word, right? But I think traveling full time really kind of burns you out at a certain point, no matter who you are. And we came to a point where it would be kind of nice to have a place to be going back to and recharging between our jaunts with the RV. Yeah. But it took years to get there. We got really worn out before we got there. But yeah, now we're finally starting to think about that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's take us back. Okay. 2018 or even 2017. Tell everybody because I know a lot of people for themselves, especially if they're not in an RV yet, they're like, well, I have X job or I have X business. I can't do that. Right. I'm a firm believer that you can do whatever the heck you want to do, especially in today's economic climate where there's actually a lot of people are virtual. So there's ways to do this. So I'm just curious, what were you doing before from a business or job perspective? And then how has that potentially shifted? We'll talk about that eventually, but bring us back to when you chose to go full time, when you even had this idea. Was it your idea? Did I get that correctly? Was it your husband? Do you have a husband as well?
My husband, okay. Yeah.
Was it your husband's idea? Was it your idea? Walk us through just kind of what happened and what were you doing before?
Well, it definitely wasn't my husband's idea.
Okay.
So I've been with my husband, gosh, I believe it's been about 6 years now. And I've been working in media since I graduated college. And so I worked on a lot of films and reality TV shows, and I kept moving a lot between New York, Los Angeles, Austin, Pittsburgh at the end. And we kept uprooting our life over and over again for these jobs.
Mm.
And there became a point where I wondered if I could be doing something similar on the road. And I started really looking into how I could transfer my skills digitally. And that's where Cinder's Media came from. I was working with a lot of clients, helping them with video editing, social media management, writing. It was just kind of a whole grab bag of what can I be doing for people digitally. And I did that for the first, really up until now, honestly, for years on the road, just kind of whatever was coming along and paying the bills. My goal as of more recently is to turn the podcast and the blog into more of an income generating machine and kind of leave those as it's just I would rather be building that. I'd rather be talking about travel all the time. I loved working in media, but it's also another thing that's kind of exhausting after a while. So trying to switch, and I did have a stint in between all the media jobs where I did go back to business school and I got my MBA. And so my brain has always kind of been on like, what's the next thing I can be doing, running something myself as opposed to working for somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some principles in there, what you just shared, and a lot of people can take from that, especially if they have a job or if they have a business, or maybe they have a job and they're looking at starting something new, utilizing some of the skills that they have in their background or even in their present, and finding ways like you did to utilize those to provide services to other people that allow you and afford you the opportunity to be more mobile. Right. And then as you're evolving your interest and your desires and your value you're providing in the marketplace, you're getting it more and more closely aligned to what really lights you up, right? Which is the travel piece. So you've got your podcast now, you've got your blog, you're providing a ton of value. And eventually people can, maybe you have to ride two horses a little while. And sometimes you have to do that, especially when you become an entrepreneur. Eventually you can jump off that first horse and get on the second horse. And keep riding off into the sunset, right? To keep.
Yes, I'm definitely in the two horses phase right now. But I just realized I didn't answer your other question though. So how this transferred into RV life is eventually we kind of got sick of constantly moving to new cities and starting over. And I grew up camping with my grandparents and my mom out of a road trek on the summers. My husband grew up with a pop-up camper trips in the summers. And so I had started questioning, can we be, if I'm doing these client projects, I had started doing them in Pittsburgh at the same time I was working on a show.
Right.
Is this something that can transfer into the RV? And, could I start thinking about living out of an RV full time and seeing all these places we dream of going? We never had enough vacation time, it was never enough, the places we were going each year while living in the towns, to us at least.
Right.
And so I've been pushing my husband for like a while. And then eventually one day my husband came home from work and was just ready. And we got married. And then a month later, we jumped into the RV and we've been in the RV ever since. And everything just picked up really fast from there.
Wow.
But we took that summer. It took a couple months to like switch everything over and then take off on the road.
Okay.
But we were also planning a wedding at the same time. So it was kind of crazy.
Goodness, that is totally crazy. So what were you guys seeking? Like, I'm trying to think back to what I use. I know what word I have, and I'm going to say it again in a minute, but what was it that you were seeking?
We were seeking more freedom for sure, which I know is your group's title, but freedom and the ability to be structured on our own accord, to be working and still providing for ourselves, or my husband's going back to school, doing those kind of things. But when the day's over, if we want to go for a hike, like going and seeing this new place and going for a hike, whenever we were staying put in one place for so long, we got really familiar with the area really fast and kind of bored. And so there was that variety of life of always kind of going to the next place and then doing new hikes and seeing new things when we weren't working, which was really lovely.
Right. Now, have you been in the same RV from day one, from the beginning?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And and welcome to the show. I know we've got some viewers popping in and out here. We have Cindy Scott of cinderstravels.com. I'm going to pop up, definitely follow her on Instagram at Cinders Travels. We're talking today about when you want to go get more freedom in life and you're thinking about living full-time in an RV, what the heck do you do? Okay. So you started off with you have a fifth wheel, right?
Yep. A 35-foot long Keystone Cougar.
Woo! Which, if anyone out there doesn't know what a fifth wheel is, it's, from my rudimentary understanding, it's kind of like a travel trailer, but it's bigger and you pull it with a truck, right? So you have options.
Yeah, it goes into the truck bed instead
Yes.
of the hitch. So it's a little bit more stable going down the road is kind of the big difference there.
And they're typically larger than a normal travel trailer from my experience. I could be wrong, but
it feels like you get a little extra space because of the hangover of the truck. It feels like you get this little extra living space than you do in a travel trailer.
Yeah. So 35 feet. Okay, cool. That's the same square footage, or not square footage, but same foot length as the Class A that we're getting.
Yeah, same length as yours.
And I'm curious, like, what had you choose fifth wheel? I know you have a post on your blog about if you're doing a vacation, do you go van life? Do you go RV? So like, what had you choose that? And do you feel like you made the right choice?
Yeah, we are one of the few, I feel like, that really loves what we picked. I know it's really common for people to pick one and then change within the first year, but we really love our fifth wheel. I will say it's very long, and I think driving it around the country has definitely taken its toll on us.
Right.
But that being said, for living out of it, we love the length it is. We love it when it's parked. It's just hard to drive around the country. But we do talk about, if we get a forever home later down the line, maybe getting a van or a truck camper and kind of downsizing, because right now we're carrying everything with us, right? And so the goal is to not be doing that someday and be able to be in a smaller size. But we love the fifth wheel. We started looking at travel trailers, which you mentioned, and after talking to, what actually happened, I was working on that show in Pittsburgh, and one of the guys who does all the RVs for the show, he said, don't get a travel trailer, get a fifth wheel. And we really started looking into it, and we realized we just really liked the build better of fifth wheels. We felt like we were getting a little bit better, something better for our money. But if we hadn't talked to that guy, we probably would be in a travel trailer right now.
Okay. So advice from people has definitely steered me different ways and allowed me to really explore different options and see what's going to work best for me. We initially thought we were going to go van, and then we're like, we're going to be in this thing full time, and we're not trying to do this like for a month. We're trying to do this for at least a year. And we both work still, right? We are like escapers. For a new community I've learned of is all about working age RVers, right? Not like
we're in that group.
Yeah, we're all in that group. So, relatively young, and we're trying to have fun, and we're still working. So, I was like, I think we need a larger one. I wanted a Class C. I wanted something a little more agile, a little more mobile, because I know it's probably more challenging to like pull off the side of the road and like.
Right.
It might be a little easier in a Class A. It might not than a fifth wheel. I'm not sure, but it's just big. And then getting in and out of parks. Like, so I still have some concern about that. We were just at Sequoia this week, and all the way up the mountain, it's like nothing over 22 feet, nothing. I kept seeing the sign, nothing over 22 feet. I'm like, shoot, are we going to like not be able to see a lot of the places?
Well, you're towing a Jeep, right?
We are towing a Jeep. Yeah.
So what you would be doing is all those national parks have spots where you would be dropping your RV if you want to go do something for the day or something. Otherwise, yes, if you're trying to drive through, you have to find a different path. And that's one thing that's a little disappointing about the big RV lifestyle is you lose a little bit of that road trip factor going place to place. You're almost always on big interstates. But once you're parked, you get to go explore with your smaller vehicle. So it's all a trade-off. What made you guys decide to pick the 35-foot long one?
My wife wants a washer dryer.
Yeah. Yeah, amenities.
Do you have a washer and dryer in yours? And if so, is it important?
We don't have one. We do have the hookups for it. It could be installed. Honestly, I think what I would have picked in retrospect, 2.5 years later, I would much rather have a dishwasher. They make little dishwashers that you can also hook up,
I've
and
seen those.
I miss that more than because you can make your clothing kind of last. And
Yeah.
there's laundromats and laundry at a ton of campgrounds. Even like a ton of state parks, which is really surprising. They're often in them, like in Louisiana and Florida, we found those.
Yeah.
So, but if she likes clean it's everyone's own opinion. If she wants more clean laundry more often, then I totally get it.
I think she just has bad childhood memories of a laundromat or something, or hanging clothes outside.
Oh,
I don't know what it is, but I have a feeling there are features on the RV that you think are going to be important when you go, but until you go, you don't know. And then there's probably features on the RV that you thought were not going to be important, and you're like, whoa, that's really important. I'm so glad I have that. So anything fit into either one of those categories for you? What would you say?
I'm not sure as much about features, but something on a similar path is we overpacked when we started off on
Mm,
our journey. We brought like everything with us, thinking like, just what would we need? We didn't know. And I think that was okay, but I think we were too weighed down. And
yeah.
eventually we have a small storage unit in
Mhm.
Maryland. And eventually we went back and put a ton of the stuff we brought with us on the road. We've actually made like 3 trips back to the storage unit since being on the road. So I guess I would try to say if if you do bring a ton of stuff with you, maybe ask yourself if you're using all of it and try to like purge some of that so it
Oh
doesn't feel
yeah.
so full.
Oh, what is it? Marie Kondo, that book
Yeah.
that yeah, you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. I don't remember what it's called,
Yep.
but yeah,
I used that when we were downsizing our Pittsburgh house. I used that actually. I loved
it's a
that
great
book.
book. Oh, my wife loved
Yeah.
it too. I didn't read it, but she taught it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so were there any what was the thing that you like most overpacked, or you're just like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking that you didn't
A
need?
lot of like paperwork, which is kind of funny, but I save a
Really?
lot of paperwork. maybe that's a little too much information, but like in photos and just like
Photos, yeah.
family heirloom kind of things that I don't know, you think you're going to look at them maybe, right? You think maybe one day
Yeah.
you're going to open up the photo album and want to go down memory lane or something, but it's
Yeah.
okay to store them for a few years and come back to them. We never opened them. We never
Yeah.
did any of that kind of stuff. Even books, we packed a lot of books in the beginning and we put a ton in the storage unit because having them on a Kindle is just so much easier.
How about like from a clothing perspective? I'm a speaker and a coach. My wife is an owner of a franchise called CPA Moms. It's a nationwide franchise. So we both speak from time to time. And I'm curious, like, I don't know if you ever have a need in your profession to, put on something fancy, or maybe you just like to go out sometimes and put on a dress or put on something fancy. I just can't see myself bringing dress shoes and a suit on an RV. I just cannot even see it. I might have to just transform my image as a speaker. And I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on clothing? Did you bring too much clothing, or was there enough room?
So we really narrowed down clothing a lot before we left.
Yeah.
So we probably do still have too much clothing, but it's pretty narrowed down. We just have one closet and then like one dresser. We do have under the bed, we have storage, and that's kind of our like Christmas slash nice
Mm,
clothing land. And that's
got it.
where like we each have one like
Like
nice
once a year,
outfit.
get the bed
And
up.
we've used it, right? Like, so we went to Madison, Wisconsin, and we decided to see a play. Like, we went and saw Anastasia and
Nice.
things like that, that you just kind of don't know if they're going to happen. So it's nice to have it. And if you're a speaker, you know it's going to happen. Like, it
It's
makes
gonna
sense to bring
happen.
it with you.
Totally.
But I would
Okay,
just
cool.
narrow it down to the basics.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Okay, so talk to us about, like, again, when you're getting started, like what are some of the pitfalls, or some of the things that, like, I don't know, that people stress about that aren't a big deal? And whatever you want to share
Mm.
about, like, when you first got started, what were some of the stressors? What were some of the challenges? What were some of the
Yeah.
pitfalls to avoid? Talk to us about that.
I think a lot of people wait on RV life because they're overwhelmed by the thought of it, or they don't know how everything's going to work. It's kind of like learning a whole new thing. And especially the size of them, if you go big, is also another thing that I think also really overwhelms people.
Yeah.
My main advice would be we bought this thing. It's right over here. I keep pointing to it. We bought
Yeah.
this fifth wheel knowing nothing about fifth wheels. We got the walk through on the lot. We spent 3 days living at a camping world and moving everything in. They were so sweet to us. But like the first weekend, it was 19 degrees in Pittsburgh. We're moving in and we ran out of propane. We didn't realize they hooked us up. Like they had everything running. They had us on electric. They had our propane on. And we didn't know what to do. Like we had to call the Camping World sales lady at like midnight on the Camping World lot because we're free. It's just like you will learn as it goes. You will learn by trial and error sometimes, but don't be afraid to learn all the new parts of it because it's not as challenging as it seems, as daunting as it seems.
Yeah. I have a question about that, but does your camera have the ability to easily just go like that and show us the RV just real quick? If not, don't worry about it.
Well, it's just my computer, but I think, let's see. there's a whole bunch of trash under it.
That's okay.
So bad.
Well, hey, I just wanted to see. We got an RV, ladies and gentlemen. All right, cool.
The Cougar fifth wheel. Sorry,
the Cougar, baby.
Graceful.
No, that's okay. Hey, you're in nature. You're chilling. I love it. So we're just talking about getting started and not letting all of those nuances overwhelm us, and learning all the new things. And that's one of the things I have a little bit of a fear around, really, like honest fear. Like I'm not a handy dude. Like you put a hammer in my hand, it becomes a weapon. Like that's all I got. I'm not super handy. And my wife is probably more handy than I am actually. So that makes me a little bit nervous. And a quick funny story. The first time we rented an RV, the only time we rented an RV, it was a 37-foot Fleetwood Bounder, I think. Yeah. And no, Fleetwood Pace Arrow. And we literally kept it so simple, Cindy. I was like, all right, all we're doing is we're driving it to an RV park that of course has pickleball because it's our new favorite sport, as I mentioned pre-show.
Yes.
And we played pickleball for like a whole week and, did some hiking and hung out with some friends out in the Palm Springs area. And it was a blast. But man, that first night we got there a little late. And I'm like, oh, I thought our site had sewer. I'm like, where the heck's the sewer? And I'm like, why doesn't the microwave work? I'm like, what's going on here? I did figure out how to plug it into the electric. The next morning, I'm sitting out there and I'm like walking around. I'm like, what's going on? How do I do this? I'm calling. I'm like upset. I'm like, what's going on? I thought I had the right campsite. The lady right next door walks over and she's like, oh, I told her how my microwave doesn't work. And she's like, oh, she like comes over and grabs the electrical outlet. And I had a 30 amp connector attached to, it was an adapter connected to the 50 amp main cord. And I had it plugged in and it was coming in at 30 amps because I had the little converter in there. I didn't know what that was. That's just how it came in the rental. It was all connected together. So I was only pulling 30 amps when I had a 50 amp base or whatever it's called. So that's the first thing.
That's actually what we're doing in this spot right here.
Oh, you are? You got a little adapter?
We're a 50 amp, but we're on a 30 amp. And, sometimes you can't run stuff at the same time, but every rig's going to be different. But for the most part, we can survive off 30 amp.
Yeah. And she's like, all you have to do is take off the adapter and then you got microwave. You're good.
Oh, you had a 50 amp plug-in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I just had the adapter. So it automatically converted it down to 30.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm that was cool, but she had to go. And then this other guy drove by and they were both work campers. And I didn't know. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. They work and they camp. And this guy drives by. He was one of the maintenance dudes. He was driving around a little 4-wheeler. And I flagged him down. I'm like, hey, I don't have sewer. What's going on? He walks over and he just you could tell he's kind of like giggling. He just kind of kicks the ground a little bit. And he's like, yeah, it's right there. It was like, the little black tubing. I didn't see it. It had dirt on it. And he's like, yeah, it's right there. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, wow, I am such a rookie. I didn't even know the electric and the sewer. So
I think
there's a lot to learn.
People at the campground see a lot.
Yeah. And they're so nice. Like these were full-time RVers, by the way, and they just were living there for the season. I'm learning many from Canada. And they're just like, they were so friendly. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to meeting more people. I'm sure not everybody is perfect, but I've met so many amazing people in the RV community. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that. Some of the people you've met. Have you had that experience?
I would say overall, the RV community is very friendly, exceedingly friendly. Actually, when I set up outside here, last time I did something like this outside, my neighbor brought me a watermelon while I was on the video chat. And I was a little nervous that something like that might happen while I was out here.
That's awesome.
just very friendly in general. And we've all gone through it, right? Like if a neighbor showed up to us and didn't know what they were doing and needed help, like we're going to help them because we've been there and people have helped us. There's always people of varying stages learning about it all. And I just think it's a very friendly community. We're in a special group. It's not like living in a suburb.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I call it the freedom lifestyle, making money on the move, like learning how to create a life for yourself while having the freedom that lights your soul up, right? And that's you're right. There's got to be similar value sets. I find that when a lot of people hang out together, they have similar values, right? They value certain things and they act accordingly. Well, I'm assuming that's very probably parallel to the RV community. A lot of people seek freedom and and they want that. So we share that in common, which is cool.
A lot of the people we've met on the road are from group gatherings. And so I know there weren't a lot of those last year, but they seem to be starting back up again, which is great. I would highly recommend going to some of the escaper events that they put on, or we met a ton of our RVing friends at a summit that Heath and Alyssa hosted a few years back.
Heath and
just
Alyssa?
Something. Yeah, Heath and Alyssa are full-time RVers. Well, they're living in a house now, but they put out a book on like how to start full-time RVing. They put out a movie. They were living out of their RV, working in every state. And they're just a really great resource for anyone watching who wants to learn more too. I would also recommend their site.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
And their summit.
Cool. That sounds great. Yeah. We plan to go to the Escapers Convergence.
Yeah.
If anybody's out there listening, well, I know people are listening and watching the replay and some people will pop in live here. It's the letter Xscapers.com, and it's part of escapees.com, which is kind of the parent company, if you will. And we're going to the Convergence event. I'll tell you our travels here. We're going to the Convergence event in Idaho I think it's July or something like that. And we're starting in July, and we're going to, we have reservations at the Havasupai Falls campground, which is totally tent camping. You have to hike like 10 miles in or something, but it's still closed due to COVID, but we paid and we have the reservation. We'll see if it works out or not. And if not, we'll reschedule for later in the year, but then we're going to go to Canyonlands and Moab area in Utah. And I'm curious if you've been to any of these. I want to talk about now some juicy places you've been in a moment. Yeah. From there, we're going to cruise through the rest of Utah up north, and we're going to go to Grand Tetons, Yellowstone in Wyoming, and then we'll go up to Glacier National Park, and we're going to spend about 3 weeks there. And we have a pickleball camp that we're going to with Level Up Pickleball. And then we're going to cruise over to Idaho or down to go to Convergence. And then we're on our way out to Massachusetts and New York to visit my family. So that's kind of the July, August, September plan. After that, we have no clue where we're going. We're just going to go where we get.
Stay in the RV.
Oh yeah.
Don't have it planned yet. Yeah. Okay, great.
Oh yeah.
That all sounds great. I have been to all of those places except for first one, the Havasupai Falls, only because we have not been able to get a reservation. And when we were in that area, it was shut down due to COVID. So, but I would love to do that. I can't wait to see you guys do it. You have to share all your pictures and everything. It's supposed to be amazing.
Yeah. Have you been to a Convergence yet by chance?
I also haven't been to a Convergence. I've been to all the places, but I also haven't been to a Convergence. We keep being on the wrong side of the country for those. A lot of people, we keep being on the wrong. They tend to happen out west when we're out east, and then I think they came east for a little bit when we were out west. We keep missing them.
Where did you guys start? Where did you start out? Where were you from originally? Pittsburgh?
So we met in Austin, but we had briefly lived up in Pittsburgh for a show I was working on. And so when that wrapped, we got married up there. And when that wrapped up, we took off from Pittsburgh. So we went straight down. Oh gosh, this is so long ago. I'm sorry. We went straight down to Florida for the holidays.
Oh, nice. What month did you start?
My family's down there. We started in November.
Oh, wow.
And so my family's in Florida. And so we went down there, and then we just kind of kept doing some loops around the states. We, sometimes we had plans, that we were really aiming to get somewhere, like a goal, like what you're talking about, your permit or your reservation.
Right.
And then sometimes we just were like, well, let's go see this national park, or let's go see. during COVID, we took it as an opportunity to go see a lot of national parks and a lot of the less visited ones, where there weren't crowds. And we really loved that time of RV life, going to Voyagers, Theodore Roosevelt, these parks that, well, you're like the only person there. Voyagers, we never saw another person on any trail.
Where is that?
That one's the very top of Minnesota.
Really?
And we went there in the fall, and it is so beautiful. Highly recommend.
Where's the next one, the Theodore Roosevelt one?
Theodore Roosevelt is pretty close along the way. It's in North Dakota, and it's in the North Dakota Badlands, so you for sure should see the South Dakota Badlands at some point on your trip.
I think we're going to drive through there on the way to Massachusetts from Montana. I'm pretty sure it's right there along the way.
Okay. Well, both are amazing. The North Dakota Badlands are very just less visited. So if you want a more to yourself experience, they're just as beautiful. Awesome wildlife. Totally worth it.
Very cool. So tell us about some of your most, like, what are some of the places that you remember the most? You've been to so many. I know you probably don't remember the order, and that's fine. But what are some of the exciting places you've been to?
Yeah, we really loved Voyagers. My husband loved Glacier. I'm excited you guys are going there.
Cool.
I loved it too, but that was like the highlight for him. We really loved the Pacific Northwest, and we were staying there longer, but we got into the phase where it started getting a little gloomy out there, and it kind of pushed us out. We needed sun, and so we went west and south after that.
Do you typically follow the sun, Cindy, for the most part?
We did for years, yeah. Yeah, we basically followed 70-degree days for 2 years as much as we could. Here now we've been, we really like this part where we're in right now, Asheville. It has all the seasons, but not like any. It has hot summer, but it doesn't have dramatic winter. It's pretty relaxed year round. I'm from Michigan, so I had some pretty rough winters, and my husband's from West Virginia. We were just kind of looking for some nicer weather at the end of all of this. But so Glacier is amazing. In Washington.
And why? Tell us why some of these were amazing as you go, whatever ones you feel inspired to.
So Glacier is just epic mountains and hikes and stuff you will, and same with Washington, the next places I'm going to talk about, things you will never see anywhere else in the States. Epic mountains, beautiful emerald green pools of water, amazing wildlife, sheep and moose, and just, it's just so unique up there. It's beautiful in the summer. And then Washington, same thing, epic mountains. Rainier is amazing for the same reason. Leavenworth is a really cool outdoorsy town that is kind of it's Bavarian themed, but it also has the mountain backdrop to it. It has tons of bike riding trails, like mountain biking down like mountains, like intense trails. Wow. That was my favorite like outdoorsy town we've been in. And if it had the climate that this area has, we'd probably be there instead. I just love that part of the States. Wow.
Any bears or other like animals where you've kind of felt potentially unsafe, or have you always felt pretty safe?
Fortunately, we have never been close to a grizzly bear. We've seen them like very far away in scopes and stuff, but black bears we've run into a few times on hikes and bike rides. They almost always, when we see them, are running from us. Every time, actually, because they saw us first, we scared them, and they were getting out. So we've never had like a scary experience with them because they heard us and got lost. So no crazy animal stories. We had our puppy when we were in the Everglades, and we had to walk him around in the Everglades, and we were kind of nervous that whole time that some alligator was going to like snatch him away from us, but we made it through that. No crazy.
What about just safety overall in the RV? I know some people that I talk to are like, well, you're going to be safe living in an RV and you don't know the people. Like, so talk to us a little bit about that. Is that really a non-issue, or do you have any safety precautions? Or
I think in parks, in established RV parks, you're pretty okay. The safety issues I think come up when you start boondocking, and not to scare people away from boondocking. You should definitely do that. It's an amazing way to experience a new place, but you should be more protected. at the least, if you're someone that doesn't believe in like carrying a gun with you or something, knives and bear spray, those types of things. At the very least, have it. If you are going to be traveling with a gun, look into the regulations of that, because it kind of, it's different state by state. So it gets a little complicated. And I'm not an expert to talk on that, but there are people out there who are. But yeah, like wasp spray, bear spray, have some cans by the doors and stuff. We swapped out our lock for a more intense lock that we felt like was better than the one that came with the rig. And we have a lock that we put on the very front of our RV that attaches to the truck bed. We just locked it up so nobody can just kind of come up and drive it away, take it away one day.
Okay, well that's pretty good advice. Okay, so so you've been to some really amazing places, and is there anything? I kind of want to loop back real quick to the conversation about this 35-foot. Again, you have a fifth wheel, and I'm getting a Class A, and I'm really struggling, and I'm not looking for you to solve this for me necessarily, but any other insight around like, should I go with maybe a 20-something footer and give up on the square footage just so I have a little more mobility? Or do you from you talking with all the RVers out there, right? You have all these friends in the RV world. What are they saying? Are they like, oh, I just love the 35-foot and I get around it and I just don't go through Glacier National because I just can't. I have to go around, which kind of stinks, right? Like, what is your insight around that anymore?
Well, just to touch on the Glacier thing real quick, we stayed on each side, and there is a road that just goes around it, and it's fairly easy and connects. And so, yeah, you park in one, and then you make the drive through on one day. But I know you already know all that.
But our listeners don't, so feel free to speak like I don't know anything.
Okay.
So that's good.
Totally up to you with what you are wanting space-wise. I hate that this is not like a great answer for you, but I will say we have more friends that bought too small and went up than the other way around.
Okay.
A lot, actually. And we just had a family friend who bought a travel trailer and within months realized wanted a fifth wheel, went up. And so if you are okay with taking the big rig around the country, I honestly think that you won't regret the bigger space, but that's, you're living in it. Like you want some separations of space. You want some, sorry, I just laughed. That was my corgi back there, not a bear. You want some separation of space. We built a desk in ours so we could have an office area, a dining area, a living room area, just feel some different spots because there's two of us trying to live in this very small space. So even though it's big, you're living in it. So really ask yourself what, I will tell you what we did. We went to a travel show, a travel RV show when we were still looking at the very beginning, and we walked in and out of hundreds of them. And just kind of like sat in them, thought about like eating a meal, thought about watching TV. And we really kind of came to terms with what was too small through that experience. So I would recommend that to anyone.
Totally. That's such good advice. We've done that as well. And if you're watching right now or on the recording, we've got Cindy Scott here. She is an expert in full-time RV and just in travel in general. It's been traveling full-time since 2018, lived in 31 states in a fifth wheel, which basically means you pull it in the truck bed. And it's a big 35-footer. So awesome. So yeah, we went to, we've been in probably 100, maybe not that many, but a lot. And we feel like that 35-foot is about the size that we want. Again, it does have generally, you can get a washer dryer in smaller, but usually those larger ones are always at least either outfitted or they're ready to go if you want to put one in. And really it has, the one we're looking at has, or we have under contract, has 1.5 baths. So I don't know. I'm curious if yours has more than one bath, and is that important to have more than one? Or is that really not a big deal? My wife's like, this is what my wife says. She's like, I don't want to get out of the shower and touch the toilet with my towel because it's so dang close. So she's like, I need separation, right?
Yeah.
So we got one that has a little better setup, and it has two. It has one in the way back, the 34S, and the one right off the living room area. So what are your thoughts on bathrooms?
So we have a really good RV couple friend. They're free as we'll ever be with the wheel for Will. On Instagram, and they have, I think it's 45 foot long. It has 2 bathrooms, and they are more of the retirement hosting stage of RV life,
Got it.
right? And so I think they really like having the extra bathroom for guests and having I shouldn't say retired. They're not retired. I don't know why I said that. Forget that part. But because they're both still working, but they're talking to people of a working age range as well about how you can be living on the road and working. But getting close to retirement, hoping for it. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent. The 2 bathrooms they love for a hosting perspective, for having friends over and that kind of separation. Us, man, we try to stay at parks where we have showers because our bathroom has basically been transformed into litter box land for cats.
Got it.
We don't even really shower very often in our rig. We do if we're boondocking and we don't have other options, but for the most part, we try to book places when we're staying at a campground that has a shower. That got a little complicated during COVID because most of the showers shut down, and so we were using it a lot. But if your wife's gonna want like a daily shower, then I could totally see it. You know, like some RV, like we don't shower every day, right? Like it's what's your comfortableness around how much you want to be showering? I think that answers that question.
I think I'm the one that likes to shower more than she does too, but I'm yeah. So, okay. So what I'm hearing you say, and everyone should listen to this, is more of your friends have bought too small and gone up versus bought too large and went down. That's what I'm hearing. So, that is what you
almost
said, right?
everyone.
Okay.
Yes, almost everyone. From teardrop up to a fifth wheel, travel trailer up to a fifth wheel. It seems like everybody ends up in a fifth wheel, or a class A like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's more common.
One of the people that I interviewed, not Adventure. Do you know Adventure-tunity? That's not who I'm talking about. I just interviewed them as well. They're a really cool couple to follow as well.
Oh, nice.
Adventure-tunity on Instagram. But there's another one, Our Mixed Adventure. Our Mixed Journey, I think it is. And I'll look it up as we're talking. And they actually started off in a 37 foot. And then it was it was a fifth wheel. Yeah. Our Mixed Journey. And then they went down to a 35 foot, literally within about 6 months. And that was only because they had an issue with the 37 footer. But then they went down all the way to a van. And I was like, wow. And the reason why for them was they just really love being able to get in and out of parks and there's so much more agility. Right. But, they have 2 dogs. I'm like, how do you do that? 2 dogs in a van? Are you kidding me?
You reminded me of another couple friend I do know, Follow Your Detour. They went down. Okay. They started in fifth wheel and they're down. Not a van, but I don't know what size it is. Yeah. But they've downsized and they have a baby and 2 dogs. So, but they're not full timing out of it, but they take a lot of trips out of it.
Well, you know what? That's big. That's different, right?
Yeah.
Because full time has got to be way different than just taking trips.
You know? I think so. I think from talking with them, they got a little worn out on pulling the bigness around, if I remember right. But it's been a while since we've talked about that. They liked getting more compact.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, not full time anymore.
So as far as going full time, and was there any element, I don't want to get into religion or spirituality, even more spiritual than anything, but that's not what I'm talking about when I say the word faith, but that's like one of my favorite words, and just acting in faith, because there's a lot of courage that's required, I think, to take this kind of leap and have this shift in lifestyle. And there's got to be some kind of faith that, like, I've seen it in my mind's eye. It's going to work out. I don't know how the heck it's going to work out, but like, what's been your journey with just being okay with maybe some uncertainty of how it all is going to work out? Has that been challenging for you? Has that been easy for you? What's that been like?
I think for me, I'm a person who's typically chosen a non-traditional path and has trusted that things will work out, even from when I started working in the media industry. Yeah. I think for my husband, it was more challenging, and this is my guess.
Can you say that again? It just cut out. Your husband is what?
Oh, I think for my husband, it was a little different.
Okay.
He he was going through a big life change. A part of us going to Pittsburgh was to help take care of his mother, who was passing away from
Oh,
cancer at the time.
wow.
And when things got really bad, I think that was the moment he needed, that told him he wanted to go try this. He could put faith in this
Mm.
because he saw his mom pass away too young,
Yeah.
and she still had so much she wanted to do. And I think it really invigorated something in my husband of, I got to go do this now. Who knows? And I think that was the faith for him that kept him, like, he just needed something different. And I think that's really common with people on the road. You hear of some catalyst happening. It's
Yeah.
kind of even that theme that was in Nomadland a little bit. There's like this catalyst that sends you out. I think that is really common with a lot of people. And he definitely had that moment.
Yeah. Well, if you're just watching this now, you're watching in the future, definitely put in your questions right now, even if it is in the future. I know we've got a viewer right now, a couple people popping in and out. Ask your questions of Cindy Scott. She is a very, very experienced, I would say expert full-time RV traveler. She has her site, cinderstravels.com, and of course her Instagram channel and her podcast, localsknowbest.com. You can check that out as well. But ask questions. If we don't answer them today, well, I'll pop in. We'll get an answer into the group for sure. So anything else that you want to share, Cindy? But I am going to ask in a moment, how can people find out more about you? I've been flashing it across the screen, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. But to close out the show, what would you say is your best advice? Like if you were to just give maybe a couple tips or one tip or whatever, what's like your best advice for somebody that is thinking about doing this or maybe just started and is kind of questioning it? What would be your best advice?
For someone who's just thinking about it or just starting it, I would just pick a date in the future and start working at learning, researching, purging your things, going through the steps necessary, but pick a date that you can be motivated toward. Like, just believe that you can do it and work toward that date. That's really what kept us going. Like, we had a date and we had a big board and we wrote on it like kickoff day, and we reached RVs, we got rid of all our things, we figured out what kind of truck we needed, all these things, but it just kind of keeps you going toward that big goal.
Yeah, that's
exactly
what we did. And not only that, we actually booked like two reservations right out of the gate that we need to be certain places. Now we could drive there if we don't have our RV, we could still drive and come back. They're not that far from California, but that was kind of the anchor that we put. And the other big thing that we did is we told everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you have no going back.
Right. Even if it doesn't happen right on July 14th, it's going to happen very soon after. It just comes down to when do we get the RV? Because there is something getting repaired on it right now. Okay, awesome. Well, this has been so much fun for me. Hopefully it's been fun for you as well. And I want people to know, like, what are some of the services that you provide right now? How can we support you? Obviously, I want you to tell us about the websites while you're saying that as well. What can we do to find out more from you and learn more from you?
Yeah, the biggest thing right now is to check out the Locals Know Best podcast. I'm interviewing a local from a different place in every episode, and we're really going in depth for outdoor nature lovers. How do you have the best day possible in this area? And it's just got tons of tips. If you notice any towns that you're going to be driving through, check it out. Everyone who's been on it is really great and shares amazing information. If you're looking for more RV travel guide tips, go to cinderstravels.com. And at the bottom of almost every post, I have a sign up for my newsletter list. And the only reason I'm mainly recommending this is because I think it'd be great for your group watching this. You get a freebie with it of a beginner's guide to making the switch to full-time RV travel. And it's got my 8 tips of what we did. I talk about setting that date and then all the things we did during that time. It's just a 9-page PDF that goes into more detail about how we did that. So I would recommend, getting that PDF. I think it'd be really helpful to a lot of the people watching.
Totally. So that they go to cinderstravels.com, and you said on just about any page down at the bottom, you can sign up for the newsletter. Just find the newsletter. Be resourceful, folks.
Yeah,
Find that
I think
newsletter.
it's on the sidebar as well.
Sidebar.
I'm having a hard time
Yeah,
picturing
I've
the
seen
website
it.
at the moment.
I believe it is on the sidebar. I've seen it. And grab that free gift with the PDF, basically 9-page PDF.
Yeah.
It's got tips and tricks of how to go full time. You know, I'm getting that. I'm getting that as soon as we're done here. And then, of course, make sure to follow Cindy at Cinder's Travels on Instagram. She puts out some great content. I love every one of your posts. I try to like them and share as much as I can whenever I can. So this has been a ton of fun for me. Any last words of wisdom before we part ways today?
Just do it if you're thinking about it. You know, take your time, make sure you got all your ducks in a row, but just go for it. You won't regret it, honestly.
Yes. Love it. All right. Well, thank you again, Cindy. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and just hang tight here. And until next time, remember to always think big, say yes, and take action. That's exactly what I'm doing. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Club Freedom Live as well. Until next time, have a wonderful rest of your day. All right. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks.